Today's for this session, my topic is Abdul Ghani Khan's Sufi poetry in Pashto language and analysis. Abdul Ghani Khan is a famous Pashto poet who was born in 1914 in district Sadda of present Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and died in 1996. In Pashto language, he produced a rich poetry regarding different aspects of the Pakistani or South Asian society in general and Pashtun society in particular. As far as his poetry in Pashto language regarding the Sufi poetry and the Sufism is concerned, my understanding or my little knowledge is that probably to cover his whole Sufi poetry, another at least one-day conference would be essential, and that may not be covered in such these 15 minutes. Anyhow, I'm trying to make it as short as possible. In Pashto language, Abdul Ghani Khan is known as a Lebanese Falsafi, or a mad philosopher in English language. The reason was that majority of his contemporary common men were unable to comprehend his in-depth Sufi poetry in its true letter and spirit. As a result, the traditional local Muslim clergy considers his poetry contrary to the rites of Islam. However, his poetry is being understood nowadays, is being understood in its true letter and spirit. Basically, in his poetry, he has encountered the traditional way of knowing Allah Almighty and the relationship between Him as a creator and lover and human being as a creature and beloved. In this context, Abdul Ghani Khan challenges the traditional explanation of mullah, means clergyman, and gets him annoyed through his poetry. Starting with the creation of human being, Abdul Ghani Khan asks the mullah in a Pashto language or in a Pashto couplet is under. He says in Pashto, Kaaba, Kaaba, Joda Ibrahim Gra, Zujodkadiyam Allah. Kaaba Joda Ibrahim Gra, Zujodkadiyam Allah, Vaya Sok Lord of Uchadde, Vaya Emula. The translation is that Kaaba was built by Abraham. I was created by Allah. O Mullah, tell me who is prominent and high. Abdul Ghani Khan believed that Allah Almighty loves a human being more than 70 mothers, worldly mothers, though his love may never be gauged or judged with the love of worldly mothers, and his love, means Allah's love, for a human being is much more. Hence, in return, the only demand of Allah Almighty from the human being is nothing but love for Allah Almighty. He is of the view that human being must obey Allah's Almighty, not because of his fear, but out of his love for Allah Almighty. Abdul Ghani Khan says in Pashto, he says that Chidwas the Badului Sabatar sabade khawi. Toba halad sharabu. Che sharab dar tapratwi. Ghani Khan says that what are your good deeds? If you have no capability to do anything wrong, then that's not your virtue, that you are doing something good forcefully because you have no other option to do any wrong thing. You have no capability, you have no access. He says, further says, Chibudashi khulakar shapa, gatobato vadasaki, hagakhata vadu badwi, danakama chitashike. He says that when you get old, when you are an old man, and then you says, you refuse, you regret not to do anything wrong, because you are not able anymore to do anything wrong, then is that your refute? Is that acceptable at that age? Because in every age, even when you are young, when you are energetic, when you have different emotions, feelings, you have to refrain yourself, and it's not anything virtue when you get old and you stop doing all these wrongdoings. He further criticized the mullah, and he says, Mulanas te tukdo shkorta, why rindanu ta kharab. He says the mullah is sitting in the mosque and he talks against, or he ridicules, or he objects, criticizes these drinkers or the drunkard men. He says that this poor mullah has mullah garib so bri jumaat ke namashukshda nashara. He says that what can this mullah do when there is never beloved nor drink in the mosque? So he is sitting, he is feeding on the bread brought to him to the mosque from his followers or from the people who are praying these prayers in his imamat. Further he says that Shibab the Guru Dakwi Mastana on the Mahami. He portrays a very lovely, a very romantic environment in the evening, and he says then when there is your beloved and he comes like that and he meets you and he hugs you, and there is an environment where there you are fully charged your physical emotions and feelings, and there is probability of doing something like sin or something wrong, and meanwhile you stand up and you rush to the mosque or to from that environment where there is your beloved is available, and there is the chance of the physical intimacy with your beloved, and meanwhile you stand up and you rush to the mosque and you stand there before Allah Almighty, and then you start to weep out of your emotions. Then this Ghani Khan says that I conclude one thing about such a man of that either he is Ghaus or he is Hijra. That is the last one. Tiche daga waqt uchat se che jumaat ke pir radashi levanewai kasam de ya kho Ghaus ya Hijra. Kya bhi aap Ghaus hain? Either you are a Ghaus. That is, he basically in these couplets Ghani Khan has symbolized the true story of Zulaikha and Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam. He says that it was out of the love in the heart of Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam for the Allah Almighty which refrained himself from doing anything bad which could displease Almighty Allah, despite the fact that Zulaikha had plotted well for committing a sin with him. He is also of the view that love for Allah is in the heart of a human being is more effective than fear to refrain him from doing anything evil. In his Sufi poetry, Ghani Khan places and replaces Allah Almighty and human being as a lover and a beloved respectively. Sometimes he personifies Allah Almighty as his lover and he, Ghani Khan, is his beloved. Other times he took Allah Almighty as his beloved and addresses him as his Janan in Pashto language. In one of his poetic dua prayer in Pashto, he addresses his Janan and says as under Stargo de Janan ki zama khpali jahan nadi Wadikh la dunya zawge stad dunya niyam. He says that in the eyes of my Janan, in the eyes of my beloved, there is universe that is full of so many words, and I am not hungry, I am not in need of this word, and you may take it away of me. He says that Dora the Fakir point the school kitaj the Sikandar Prode, Zayam the Sakhyanu the Shumanu Gada Nayama. He says that though he seems like a poor fakir, he seems like a beggar, but he says that even the crown of the Sikandar the Great is in his feet, and he doesn't care about any worldly things, cause he says that he is the beggar in the court or in the front of Almighty Allah, who is courteous, who is kind, and he is the Aka. He is the Aka, a master who can do anything, who has the control over all the universe. So his Aka or his Rabb or his Almighty Allah is not a common identity or entity. So he says that I am asking my Almighty Allah proudly to give me His courtesy to me at any cost, and I am a careless malang or beggar in front of Almighty Allah. He further says that Ghani Khan in another Pashto couplet he says the khabaro supnishta Ghani Zan Saragunegi. The khabaro supnishta Ghani Zan Saragunegi Levane halagole che ugori jananta. He says that there is no one to talk to him. Means there is no one to talk to Ghani Khan, and he is murmuring, he is talking to himself. But don't call him as Levane, don't call him as maid, because whenever you will see his beloved, means Almighty Allah, then you will understand the reality that why he is talking to himself, because whenever Almighty Allah is beniyaz, he is Allah Samad, and when he doesn't talk, Almighty Allah doesn't talk to a common man, then he becomes Levanai, he becomes a maid in love of Almighty Allah, and that's why he starts to talk to himself. In a nutshell, due to shortage of time, we might go ahead. In a nutshell, it may be concluded that apparently Abdul Ghani Khan's Sufi poetry in Pashto language is painted artistically with romanticism. but underneath it is full of spirituality. He tries to reach Allah Almighty by knowing Him through Quran and Sunnah. Though he believed in following the way of Sufism to have a meet-up, wasal with Allah Almighty, but he denies the traditional mullah. Thank you so much.